Episode number 258, Pursuing Christ, Creating Art, with Gary Molander. Part 2. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
This is the Making Sunday Happen podcast. Thanks so much for being here. I love getting to talk to you guys. You are on the front lines of ministry week in and week out, especially in an incredible year in ministry. You are the ones in the trenches figuring things out to plan, create, and execute your worship experiences, both physical, if you're meeting in person, and online. So keep up the great work. I believe in you guys. You guys are doing incredible work. I talk with you often on social media and through email and through text and through phone calls. So thank you so much for keeping in contact with me. And also, I just want to thank you and applaud you for what you are doing week in and week out at your churches to keep worship experiences rolling and serving the people in your community. This week on the podcast, we are continuing our conversation with Gary Molander on the topic of pursuing Christ, creating art. We'll be talking about purpose, the difference in being a creative and an artist. We talked a little bit about that last week. We're also talking about your identity, your purpose, creative blocks, how to get through creative blocks, and more. So we'll dive straight back into my conversation with Gary in just a minute. But first, this week's episode of our podcast is brought to you by Design Revival, coming up later this month. Here's a little bit more about the event and how you can register, and then we'll jump right back to my conversation with Gary Molander. Check this out.
I want to extend an official invitation to you to be part of our virtual conference experience, Design Revival. It is a 2-day design conference on August the 28th and 29th that will inspire and equip you to use compelling design to better communicate the gospel in your church. We're creating an exciting virtual experience that you can enjoy in your pajamas. We have an amazing lineup of speakers who will inspire you to use design in new and innovative ways. You'll hear from people like Ryan Hollingsworth, who is the creative director at Elevation Church, John David Harris, who is the former creative director for Relevant Magazine, Emily Mills, who's an illustrator who does amazing sketch notes, and there's many, many more. We'll have 4 live main sessions and over 15 workshops. Look, we want to help your church reach your community with the gospel and remove the distraction of bad design. You can register today by going to 1230.media/Design Revival. Reserve your spot for Design Revival today.
Okay, so when it comes to authority, you talk about this concept of diffusing the bomb, which I love this. Okay, so you're giving 2 questions that leadership needs to answer when it comes to every project. So as a person doing the project, I need to be prepared to ask these 2 questions, and a leader needs to be prepared to answer these 2 questions for everything. So I want to walk through both of those because this is gold. All right, so first question is, what do you see? So kind of walk me through why I'm asking that question to a leader.
So the setting is this. You have a task, and they've given you a task. It's an artistic task. It's something that you have to do. And you need to make sure, and this is on you as the artist. This is on you as someone who works in a church. You set a time with your direct report.
Is this a weekly meeting?
No,
Okay.
It's a task. It's based on task.
Okay.
I'm not into weekly meetings.
Okay.
I don't see the value of those.
Okay.
But it's based on tasks. So, hey, you should create a video of the Johnsons because they were almost ready to get a divorce and they got back together. Let's create a testimony video. Great. Carl, go. Gary, go. The first thing I do is I say, okay, so we need to set a time, about 15 minutes, and I just need to ask you a couple questions, Pastor, or I need to ask you a couple questions, community group leader or whoever it is. The first question is, what do you see? images, themes? Do you want us to copy another church? What is the, well, I hope not. What is the, what does the background look like? You know, is it white? Are there hanging lights? What do you see? Is it like an I am second? Is it, what do you see there? And then also part of what do you see is, do you have a story that you're hoping to get?
Good.
So that's all part of what do you see. That's the first part. You're inviting your leader to be an artist. That's what you're doing.
Well, and also samples, which I really like. Give me a couple, 2 or 3 examples.
Yeah.
Of what you see.
Yeah. Send me those links. YouTube. Apparently, there's this thing called YouTube now.
Right.
And yeah, send me those links.
What if I get back? I don't know. Just come up with something.
Then you will be, and I've said this to many clients before, just come up with something. I won't know until I see it. That's what I get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, I can do that. It'll take me 5 times as long.
And cost you.
And it'll cost you way more, and you won't be happy. So if we can sink in for about the next 10 minutes and just brainstorm on our own together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we can come to an answer here. And they always say, okay.
Yeah.
Right? I hate to say this, put a financial cost to it.
You know, man, that works all the time. Even in church world. Okay, so this is one thing that I tell staff members, especially production guys. Put a dollar amount on it. Even though you're full-time, say, you're paying me, this is a 101, you're paying me X amount an hour, so it's going to take this, or this is my salary, so that by the week I get paid this. So between my salary and this person's salary and this person's salary, we're going to be spending 3-4 days on this. Would you rather that, or would you rather do this route? Man, it's like changes like a dime.
All day, every day. You can preach that, and it works. And by the way, if a leader ever comes back to you and says, I don't know, you just figure it out, that's really bad covering.
Good point. All right, what's question number 2?
Second is this. It's especially, and I'm going to talk just in a church setting, okay? Where do you want this to end? Like, where are you using it in your service? Are you going to preach out of it? Are you going to use it as a sermonic insert? Are you going to show it at the end? So I need to know, am I editing for a conclusion? Do you want happy at the end? Do you want question? Do you want doubt? Do you want redemption? What exactly, where exactly are you going to play this? Funny, I just got off the phone right before this with a client, and I asked him these 2 questions. And this question, most of all, really challenges leaders.
Yeah. Where
do you want this to end? Right? Do you want people, and I often say it this way, you want people to cry or rejoice? And because now I have my marching orders. Now we have our marching orders. Now we can formulate the questions and do the editing and all of the things that we need to do. So where do you want this to end? What do you see? And where do you want this to end? It usually takes about 15 minutes, and they're done, and you're off to the races.
Good. How have you seen this diffuse? What do we mean by diffuse the bomb, and how have you seen this diffuse the bomb?
Well, the bomb is when you show your senior pastor or your direct report a first iteration of the video that you thought you were killing it on, right? Mm-hmm. Like you just put in, you worked the weekend, right? You had to explain to your wife that I got to work. I'm really sorry. Can you take care of the kids? And so she called her parents to help take care of the kids. And then you cancel date night for this video. And the pastor looks at it and he goes, yeah, not what I was expecting. And it's that response, right? That's the bomb. And you've been in it. Yep. And so have I. And I talk about this a lot because it was my life. So I learned that it's not all on him. It's not all on her. It's on me to go initiate and ask these 2 questions. And I can diffuse that moment, the bomb, where I get so hurt, or my sensitivity just goes, I'm not valued, right? You fill in the blank. I'm not valued. He doesn't value. I'm going to look for a job somewhere else. I'm this church is that God, all of it. Instead of that, have an important 15-minute meeting where you ask these 2 questions. Won't diffuse every bomb, but 90%. 90%, I promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you ever had a situation where a pastor is, I don't have time for that. I can't do the 15-minute, 20-minute thing. I don't have time for that. Just go do it.
I would say, I haven't had a pastor, but I have a lot of clients who do that. And so what I'll say is, I'm going to email you some thoughts. And when you do have time, right, get back to me via email. And so I'll email those 2 questions, and it'll be this conversation, but in email format. And when it's on their terms, on their schedule, they can jump into it. I've never had a client or a pastor not do that.
Do you hold and say, I can't move in a nice way. I can't move on this project until I get.
You know, what I try to do is I'll make it 2 or 3 action steps forward before I do that. So I'll call the couple. I'll give them 3 dates that we could shoot, and then I'll start working on a location.
Right.
So I walk in and I go, okay, so I'm moving on this, but I'm stuck.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay. Tell me some ways, and this kind of goes with this a little bit. Tell me about some ways that I can submit and disagree with my leadership.
Yeah. So I really fell into the trap when I was, this is rough. This is just a rough thing. Whenever I speak on this at conferences or just one-on-one with church folks, they're hurting. Like, this is hard, right?
Yeah. This
is really hard. A lot of them feel a little bit like it was a bait and switch. Like they were offered, I mean, you know the story.
I do.
They were offered to create art for God, and it'll change the world, and they end up doing the bulletin shell every week. Right? So I just want to be really careful and not make this just this 2-dimensional sort of binary thing. This authority thing is extremely emotional. And there are people listening to this podcast right now who are considering leaving their church job because of this. Yep. So I say all that just to let's contextualize it, and because it's real and we're human. When I was in that place, and I would go home, and I would, frankly, I either cry myself to sleep or I'd anger myself to sleep. I scream myself to sleep. I was so distraught over, I just have to do everything that my senior pastor wants me to do the way he wants me to do it, and I have to abandon my family to get it done, right? What I learned is that that's not what God's calling you to, man, at all. That's not. God's actually calling you to have some courage. And God is saying, I think, and he was saying to me, and I didn't do it, he's saying, you need to go talk to that guy. Like there's a conversation that might need to happen once a month for a while, but you have 3 options. And so the first option is you support the pastor publicly, but you disagree privately. Mm-hmm. Right? That's with any leader, by the way. You never badmouth. You never stand before anybody, even a small group that's meeting in your home, and say, well, yeah, like, no.
Right. And I would filter that down. And I've said this before, like if you're in the production booth, let's just say, and the worship leader from the stage turns another chorus, you're like, gosh, he always does that. Why can't you go off? We had it on Planning Center. It was this, what? It's not just the pastor. Don't badmouth your coworkers, your teammates, and publicly.
That's a great illustration. That happens every Sunday, every weekend. It happens in youth group. It happens. I mean, these are not issues to die. This is not the mountain to die on, right? This is not the hill to die on. You're right. So he did the chorus again, and we didn't plan it. Okay, I'm here to serve.
Right.
It goes back to that, right? I'm here to serve. So yeah, you're right. So I would say support publicly and disagree privately. And by privately, I mean one-on-one. I don't mean privately. There was a lot of times I wouldn't even go home and tell my wife what was going on. That's debatable. I wish I would have now. Secondly, second option. So you can support, you can be that guy. The second option would be, so do what he's telling you to do, and then report back in an honest way and say, this is So I did it the way you asked me to do it, and it's not working, right? I missed my anniversary. I missed my kid's second birthday. I got it done, but it's not going to work for me long term. So we need to figure something out, right? Mm-hmm. And then the third is, and this is really important, be submissive, because we're called to submit to our leaders because they've been put there by God. That's what Romans says. Be submissive, but you don't have to be silent. Be submissive, not silent. Those two don't equal each other. If there's something that is just irking you, man, you don't have to be silent about it. Go talk to him. Let me give you a fourth option that is not okay. A fourth option that's not okay is what you said. It's a form of the illustration you said. And it is, I'm not going to confront him because I'm too passive aggressive to do that. But I am going to shout from the rooftops what an idiot he is. And I'll probably do that in a passive aggressive way. I won't say it in those words, but I'll roll my eyes a little bit. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll talk about how frustrated I am to my small group of people who are in my house. Yeah, I'll do that. That's not an option.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Just quit. Sorry. I mean, seriously, if that's your only option, get out of there. Just quit.
Yeah.
Really. God's got you. It's all good.
Yeah, it really can be an option. I think a lot of people feel stuck. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move and talk about creative blocks. Okay. So you have several things that are a block to us creatively, and then how we can kind of get out of those. So tell me some things that would, like procrastination, for instance, is one of your blocks. So tell me some ways that we can overcome putting things off.
I just say a couple things. I always tell leaders and project managers when they're working with people like us, designers and videographers and whoever they're working with, and even just volunteers, whoever it is, I always tell them the greatest gift that they can give us is a deadline, and even a series of deadlines. And then I tell them to, and can you attach a phone call or a FaceTime or an in-person meeting with each deadline, please? So now I'm accountable. Now I can't just procrastinate. I guess I can, but I'll be up all night the night before the meeting. But there's a meeting and a deadline, and that's super important. And that provides the second thing, which is accountability. You just gotta, yeah. And that'll block you. Procrastination will block you. How many times are you just walking around going, I should do that thing? No. I should do this. No, I'm too busy. I'm too this. I'm too that.
Yeah. Put it on paper. Put it on the calendar.
Yes.
Give yourself a date. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay. What are some other blocks creatively that I could run into?
So fear is a real creative block. Fear basically says I'm not good enough or skilled enough to do that project. Pride is another one. And pride says I'm above that project. I'm above the skill level needed to do that project. And I'm telling you, man, God will break us of both of those, fear and pride. They're almost the same coin, different side. Because with both fear and pride, we're just staring at ourselves in the mirror. So God will break us of those if we don't break ourselves of fear and pride. And they're both very real, and they can block our creative process for sure.
So let me kind of ask you an overarching question, and that is, how does everything that we've talked about, pursuing Christ, creating art, how does that relate to the worship experience? I kind of couched it for us earlier in our conversation, but maybe how can we apply these things as it comes to planning, creating, executing our worship experiences? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's a really big question. The first thing I would say is you're not doing this for God. None of it, right? Again, God's good. He's fine. You're doing this in response to something, a saving act, a redeeming act of God in your own life, whatever it is. If it's directing cars into the park, right? Whatever it is. And you're doing it for people. That's the first thing. You got to, I'm here to serve people, period. Right?
Maybe we don't do it because God needs it.
He doesn't.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. And Yeah. Does it end up being for God? Yeah, it does. But our motive is people. Our motive's always people, right? It's to serve people. Because if we serve people, then in that way we're serving God. Jesus says at the end of the whole thing, he's going to gather all the nations right before him. And he doesn't say, what did you believe? He doesn't say any of that stuff. He says, how did you serve the least of these? What did you do? How did you serve people? That is at the end of the day what we're called to do in response to God's goodness in our lives, right? Okay. So that's the first thing, right? Get our minds wrapped around that. Second thing I would say is do it not to earn an identity as a child of God. Do it because out of your identity as a child of God.
Good.
Right?
Good.
And then know the voices in your head as you're at church for that 6 hours, right? On Sunday, or as you're serving in that church for 60 hours during the week. Know the voices in your head of where they're inviting you into something lesser, right? That's frankly, it's just a demonic voice that's just inviting you into something that is busy and feels important, but isn't. I would say know that voice because you don't want to go there. So
you might answer this the same way, but in writing the book, what's the action step that you want me to take? What are you striving to do?
I want you to create something bigger than you've created yet. That's the action step. And I want you to do it I don't want to just see the product at the end. I want to see the process all the way through. And the process, and then this partnering with God, not for him. And just creating this killer thing. A byproduct of the book that's been a tremendous thing that I never saw coming was so many. It's the Me Too thing. I'm not aligning with the Me Too. I'm not doing that. But I'm saying, I'm not the only one who wants to bag it all and go start my own business. I'm not the only one who gets frustrated. I'm not the only one who ties my art to my heart. I'm not. That's you too. You too, and you're old and you're doing that.
Nice. All right. As we wrap today, I have a couple questions as far as worship experience goes. That I'd love to throw out to you and get your thoughts on. Okay, so obviously this idea of worship leader, you did some worship leading and pastor. So tell me what the difference between a song leader and a worship leader.
Oh, it's huge. In today's churches, you mentioned Planning Center, and I love Planning Center, and it can be very scripted. And if a person gets frustrated that we throw another chorus in, come on. So a worship leader is there to engage the people in the worship of God. A song leader just goes, sing loud. Mm-hmm. Right? Get the words right. Get the chorus right. Get the this right. Get the that right. A song leader is more concerned with, I think, did we get through the songs? So you go, right, you're done. You go backstage, you're all sweating. You high five the guitarist because that solo was wow, right? And then you go, whew, oh, we got through that. Really? We got through that?
Right.
That's a song leader. A worship leader goes back, high fives the guitarist, great solo, right? Fist bumps the drummer, does whatever you do, and then says, man, they were really engaged, weren't they? Or the opposite, seemed a little dead this morning. Mm-hmm. Both are okay, right? Mm-hmm. And then when I was a worship leader, I got to the point where I was looking for real people who I knew were like in distress or broken. And I would look out at them as we were singing. And I noticed that maybe one raised one hand and they'd never done it before. And I point that out. That's the heart of a worship leader. I get it wrong more than I get it right. I want you to hear that. But the heart of a worship leader is for people to enter into a transformational moment with God. That's the heart of a worship leader. The heart of a song leader says, Did the lyrics do the thing that, yeah, cool. Oh, we're through with that. Good. Ooh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. As it relates to that, you have this idea of breathing in a worship service. What do you mean by that?
There's no other. I don't breathe in the week. I'm so busy. I don't just exhale. I do. It's this forced thing called sleep. Sleep is the most surrendered thing we ever do. But I don't breathe during the week. So I love when I'm speaking or leading worship or whenever I'm doing anything at a conference or a church or anywhere, I always ask them just to, at some point in the service, can we have 60 seconds? Just 60 seconds. That's it. And can I have the pianist continue to play, or the keyboardist to just do a pad, right? And I just invite people, and I'll often say something like this: you're not going to get this invitation anywhere else this week, but I just want to allow you to breathe. So inhale through your nose and exhale, and do that again. And now as you inhale the breath, inhale the goodness of God, and exhale the breath of the Spirit. And you get quiet. Even now as I'm doing it, I'm kind of going, gosh, this feels really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think our churches are so programmed for up, or challenge, right? Or volunteer, whatever it is. They're just so programmed for everything else but that.
Yep. Just slow down. Yeah, I use a practical example here. So it's interesting with the Tom Hanks movie about Mr. Rogers coming out recently. Yeah. And the things that he was talking about with that in order to play Mr. Rogers, just completely slow down. And I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and we were just flipping through YouTube, and my wife puts on a Mr. Rogers. It's amazing how they're glued to it. And things like Bob Ross is on Netflix. My kids will watch that going to sleep occasionally. And it's amazing how the slowness, the calmness, the taking the busy life down has an impact. So I totally agree with you there.
And I think if I have any influence in programming, or if I have a friend who's on the programming team, or if I'm married to someone on the program, whatever it is, I'm always, that is the drum I bang all the time.
Slow it down.
Hey, can we have 60 seconds in the worship experience, please? People need 60 seconds in the worship experience. And we'll do it in the middle of a song. Okay, that can work. As long as they know that this is an invitation for them to inhale and then to exhale. Yeah.
Good. Well, that's a great point to end on, man. So the book is Pursuing Christ, Creating Art. It's on Amazon, your website, GaryMo.com. Is there any other place I can get a hold of you, find you?
Facebook, my name, Gary Molander. Twitter, I'm Gary Mo. Instagram, I'm something that starts with Gary Mo and then some numbers. Gary Mo 93611. Instagram, I'd love to just connect with people, and I'll follow you back and whatever it takes, man.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes for this episode.
Great.
And it's such a pleasure talking with you and getting to know you, man. Really appreciate it.
You too. Thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate it. And God bless everybody who's working in a church right now. Just God's richest blessings all over you. Yeah. If it's not easy, it might be the hardest thing you ever do, but it's so worth it. It's just so worth all the stuff.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
The Church Online Guide is a comprehensive handbook for crafting your online worship experience. This 75-page guide will give you helpful tips and resources like ideas for your service flow, tips for your website, how to craft kids and student experiences, online giving, turning your live stream into an online campus of your church, and more. Pick up a copy of the book today and watch our free Church Online web series at 1230.media/churchonline. 1230.media/churchonline. The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening or watching the show this week. Next week on the podcast, I'll welcome After Effects master Trent Armstrong. Trent is the head motion designer at Igniter Media. We'll dive into some advanced After Effects techniques with Trent next week on the show. Well, guys, I love you. Thank you so much for checking us out this week. Go out there and create some incredible worship experiences at your church this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.